Hey, recently Jordan Peterson, an agnostic professor, sat down with John Lennox, a Christian mathematician, to talk about God and science. Whole conversation was extremely interesting. I want to look at a clip from that and then share some thoughts later on in the video. Let's dive in.
You know, I think for a lot of my life, and certainly when I was younger, I really bought the doctrine that there was an unbridgeable gap between the scientific way of looking at the world and the Christian way of looking at the world, let's say. And that split, the apparent split between science and religion was a consequence of an incommensurate dichotomy of worldviews, you know, and that the church had been opposed to scientific progress, at least in part because the scientific viewpoint existed in contradiction to Christian doctrine. But then, especially in recent years, in the last 10 years, I've started to understand that that was something like a French Enlightenment / rationalist propaganda campaign, and that there's the relationship between science and Christianity is much closer than I had imagined. I cottoned on to this a little bit by reading Jung, but that just as the universities developed out of the monastic tradition, the notion that the natural world was intelligible to the inquiring logos, that it had an intrinsic logic, that studying it would be beneficial to man, first of all, that it would be comprehensible and beneficial, and that was actually a kind of moral obligation. That all struck me as like axiomatic statements of faith that were predicated on the Christian tradition, that were the preconditions for the emergence of science. And, you know, I've tried to take that idea apart over the last 3 or 4 years to see if I can find any flaws in it. But I think the evidence that the universities emerged out of the monastic tradition instead of emerging contrary to that, that's absolutely incontrovertible on every grounds you could possibly imagine. And the notion that you need to believe in the intelligibility of the world, the capability of the human logos, and the beneficial consequence of acquiring knowledge. You have to believe in all that to even get the scientific enterprise going. I also think that's incontrovertible, and that those are axioms of faith. And so I don't know if those views are in accordance with your views or what you think about that. So I'd like to hear what you think about that.
Hey, sorry, we'll get back to the video really shortly, but real quick, if you care about truth, whether it's what does the Bible really say about homosexuality or alcohol or whatever, all the way to can we actually know God just by looking at the universe, I want to encourage you to press subscribe. We're going to be coming out with more videos just like the one you're watching right now every single week, and we're diving deep to actually discover what is true. Press subscribe. Love you guys. Bye.
This is extremely interesting to me because I never saw the tension between Christianity and science, because very early on as a teenager, I was introduced to the writings of a scientist who was a Christian, who drew my attention to something Alfred North Whitehead wrote. And it was really put in much simpler language by C.S. Lewis when he wrote, "Men became scientific because they expected law in nature, and they expected law in nature because they believed in a lawgiver." And so very early on, and I was fascinated by the idea that actually modern science is a legacy of the biblical worldview. And therefore, it's no accident that the pioneers, Galileo, Kepler, Newton, Maxwell, and so on, were believers in God. And as you pointed out, it underpins the tradition that lies behind the great universities of the world, that the doctrine of creation was actually the belief, the underlying presupposition that allowed people to do science. So I've come over my life to the conclusion that science and the biblical worldview sit very comfortably together, but it's science and atheism that do not sit comfortably together, which I know is quite a controversial statement, but at least it gets discussion going.
Yeah, powerful, powerful clip. If you're kind of confused what they're talking about, essentially think about it like this. For thousands of years, people believed that God was real and that he designed the universe. So if the universe was designed by an intelligent designer, then if we look out into the universe, we know we are going to find more design because intrinsically it's intelligent. And so we can have faith, that's what Jordan was saying, we have faith that as we pursue science, it will make sense. That stands upon the backbone, the legs of the Christian tradition. What happens a lot, and John says this at the end, is that atheism comes along and wants to then take out some of those legs. And then in reality, without realizing it, they have nothing left to stand on. The very things in which the very ways we even do science now are built and predicated on, Jordan said it, faith. We are predicated on faith, that we have faith in our reason. I was recently listening to Frank Turek talk in a discussion with, Cosmic Skeptic. Maybe I'll link it down in the description or something. In that even our reasoning, our ability to reason is proof that our minds are created by a creative designer, and we have faith in our ability to understand truth, that truth is out there and we can understand it. And what happens a lot though is the science community, the atheism community, whatever, wants to say, no, you can't do that. And it's like you're taking away the actual legs that make science work. Another thing they were talking about I thought was really interesting was the logos. Recently, I was doing a study through John, and if you heard that word logos, maybe as a believer, you were keyed into John chapter 1. What many Christians fail to understand, and maybe they know logos means word, they think, maybe that's the word of God, like the Bible. In the beginning was the Bible. And I think there's some Christian traditions out there who actually believe that, whether they want to admit it or not. It's at least in their actions. The logos has nothing to do with the Bible. It has nothing to do with the Bible. It has to do with a Greek philosophical thought that the logos represented, I think it's Platonic, Plato put forth an idea that for everything that we see on earth, somewhere out in the mystical cosmos, there is a perfect representation of that, or maybe in the spiritual realm, there is a perfect representation of that. And that's why we strive for perfection. The sculptor sculpts to try to get it more and more perfect, because there is a perfect logos representation of that sculpture. And so we are all creation is trying to strive for that perfection, and perfection is out there. Maybe not achievable, but it is out there. And that's why people love beauty, because it's all there is true goodness and perfection out there. So John comes along, he says that the logos became flesh. The logos dwelt, that he who was the perfect man. This is like that Adam narrative, Jesus being the second Adam, the perfect Adam. He who was perfect dwelt among us. And then, so John is tying this into, this has nothing to do with the scriptures, but it is perfection. And I thought it was just super interesting. The whole discussion is amazing, but that science is predicated on thousands of years of people believing in the logos, not just the logos of Jesus Christ, but Jesus Christ being manifest throughout all creation, that himself is in creation. The scriptures say that he holds all things together, that his fingerprints are on all creation, so we can do science in good faith because we know there's truth out there. But if then we say, well, no, all truth is relative, and you take away one of the legs, and then you actually go backwards, and you can't take out something that you're using to stand on. Incredible video. If you guys like this, please hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.